Hello, my name is Tanner LaForce, and today I'll be talking to you about mobile games and their influence on the video game industry. Since their infusion into society, video games have been a staple of the entertainment industry and provide countless hours of enjoyment for millions of people across the world. Anyone can tap into the world of Super Mario and feel a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction when they play. Some people who seek an inquisitive game may turn to things like Tetris. Social video game players will look for a community-driven game like Street Fighter. With recent technological development in cell phones and tablets, many people can play their games on the go. Mobile games have not only made it possible for gamers to play games wherever they want, but it has opened video games to an entirely new audience. People who may have never played a video game before are now finding enjoyment in their own virtual worlds on the go. Before mobile games came onto the scene, video games relied on its dedicated audience to keep the game alive. People would bring friends over to their home just to play the new first-person shooter, or crowds would gather around an arcade cabinet to put their quarters up and play next. While mobile games may introduce artificial forms of social interaction, it is incomparable to the bonds that would form when one would physically pit themselves against another player. There are many different gameplay elements that separate mobile games from the home console, as well as numerous social implications that are affected as well. Mobile games rang in a new era of gaming in the sense that anyone can jump in now. Before, many games would take time and effort in order to attain any satisfaction from the game. Now, games like Clash of Clans, Shadowverse, and Pokemon Go offer instant gratification by rewarding the player for simply downloading the game. This can come in the form of in-game currency, virtual level-ups, and any other assortment of virtual upgrades within the game. This differs from games of the previous age where one would need to soak multiple hours in a game before they can actually feel the rejoice of prevailing in an obstacle they had once been met with. However, to say that one is better than the other is undoubtedly bias. Many argue of the moral faults that are found within mobile games through microtransactions, saying that they hold elements that force a player to spend money on an otherwise free game to succeed. While this may hold true in certain situations, acting like the arcade era of quarter munchers didn't happen is most likely due to nostalgia blurring reality. Many arcade games were designed with intense difficulty in mind to make players spend multiple dollars just to beat the game. Games like Metal Slug, House of the Dead, and many of the beat-em-up genre fell prey to this. The question then arises, what exactly have mobile games done to the gaming industry? There are many things that come into play when this question is brought up. With the arcade scene dying down since the 90s and early 2000s, many gamers were looking for a way to get involved with their friends outside of the arcade environment. This is where casual games came into the limelight. Now that social medias were starting to pick up speed, games were implemented onto their platform, and numerous people latched on. Games like Farmville and Mafia Wars became a social environment for people to interact and play in. While this wasn't exactly what many arcade gamers were looking for, it showed that there could be a social element to games outside of the physical setting. With games like Fruit Ninja and Angry Bird rising on mobile, developers soon looked to get all of their products on mobile as well. This made it possible for mobile games to not only branch into a broad audience, but to begin producing more quality and efficient content. With a large audience, corporations and game studios looked to capitalize on this with microtransactions. Microtransactions are an exchange of real-world money for an in-game currency. These currencies were often used to give other players an advantage in some form or fashion. These microtransactions had a big appeal because it is often small amounts of money invested for a decent amount of in-game currency. For example, let's say one could construct a castle in a virtual kingdom in about 24 hours of construction time. However, if they use 100 gems, they could instantly have the castle built. Conveniently, 100 gems only cost $4.99 in real-world money. This makes the player feel justified in their decision to spend money on the game. They are getting the most value for a small loss. The thing that makes these microtransactions so dangerous is that it entices players to make these small purchases repeatedly. Supercell, a mobile developer that produces almost strictly free-to-play games such as Clash Royale and Hay Day, have amassed a sales number of $2.3 billion as of 2016. Discounts and impatience can make the player feel more inclined to spend just a little bit to speed along their progress. This sole factor has affected the gaming industry in such a way that AAA developers are now introducing these into the games on the home consoles. Games like Overwatch and Fortnite offer players intricate cosmetics for just a small amount of real-world money. Instead of rewarding time investment and effort put into the games, developers are rewarding those who are willing to pump their money into the games. The aforementioned games are not even the most heinous of these implementations of microtransactions. Games such as EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Middle-earth: Shadows of War include microtransactions that further develop the gameplay, rather than strictly cosmetic appeal. Gameplay elements are restricted from players unless they are willing to invest via microtransactions to access them. The worst part is that the majority of these gameplay features are given at random, as players must throw money into a chest system. Essentially, the player must put money into a gumball machine, hoping that they get the flavor they want. If they fail to get the element they want, then they will simply have to put more money into the system. This makes for an extremely toxic consumer environment and actively takes away from the enjoyment of their video game. The current state of video games is far from what it once was. Home consoles are an ever-present medium for delivery of the product, but it is still heavily outweighed by the number of participants in mobile games. At one point in time, handheld consoles were the best options for gaming on the go, like the Nintendo DS and the PSP. In contrast, most gaming that happens out in public or in transit now are found on an individual's cell phone. As a result, portable gaming involves handheld consoles is often seen as obsolete. Many of the games that the general audience wants to play can be found on an app store. This isn't to say that the handheld industry is dying, but rather that there are more options on the market for portable games now than ever. This is a trend that prevails through the history of video games itself. A casual audience will always outnumber the more niche, dedicated audience. Whether they're loved or hated, mobile games are here to stay. There is simply too much net gain to achieve with their existence, and it is difficult for any sensible developer to pass up this opportunity. Mobile games have rung in a new era of video games, and their changes have had overarching effects not only to their own industry, but at the localized roots of their being. Mobile games have revolutionized most social and games on the go, introducing new and inventive ways to interact with friends, and to enjoy the medium wherever one may be. Though all of their implementation may not be subjectively positive, it is undeniable to say that they have shown a new generation of people what games are all about.